Right then, so we're over a week on since Anthony Joshua versus Daniel Dubois, and there's already throughout the week been a lot of talk about a possible rematch between Anthony Joshua and Daniel Dubois. And I honestly believe Anthony Joshua could make it look much closer this time round in a rematch. Whether this happens next for both guys, I don't know, or whether it could happen at some point in the future, I don't know. But to be fair, I do think it will happen at some point in the future, definitely. It could happen next. It could happen next. And no matter what, I think it will be a better and much more competitive fight than what it was the first time. I'm not saying Anthony Joshua definitely wins it, but I think a rematch is very winnable for Anthony Joshua. I think he can win the rematch. And what I'm thinking as of now about it all is I think Anthony Joshua went into that fight against Dubois, and I know it just didn't really look right, to be fair, from Anthony Joshua. I mean, he had his hands down and everything like that. I just think the game plan was all wrong, and I feel like he kind of underestimated Daniel Dubois. I think that was Joshua's downfall going to the fight. I'm not like, obviously there were loads of conspiracies about his first loss to Ruiz, sorry. I'm not coming out and saying any of that, like any conspiracies like, he was ill and all that. I'm not saying that. I'm saying that, the game plan was just all wrong and they overlooked Daniel Dubois. Simple as that. I think that's what happened. And what Anthony Joshua was doing going into that first Daniel Dubois fight is, all the talk was just about, becoming a three-time world champion, not looking at the danger and the threat that Daniel Dubois is. And I think that's where Anthony Joshua fell short, because he came out in that first fight and was literally just came out with his hands down and just thought he really just needed to crack Dubois with that big right hand, and he could eventually be able to get him out of there. That was the game plan. But obviously, before Joshua got knocked out in that fight, he hurt Daniel Dubois. He busted him open, man. And if you think about it, if Joshua possibly stayed more patient and picked his shots better, you never know, he could have possibly eventually turned the tides and possibly won the fight, because he had Dubois where he wanted him at a point. But again, he just eventually started to spam the right hand, and that's when he got caught. Daniel Dubois knocked him out. But in a rematch, I think Anthony Joshua will change it a lot. Joshua will fight a lot more defensively smart, without a shadow of a doubt he will. And that's exactly what he needs to do. He needs to fight defensively smart. And I think his defense against Jermaine Franklin was very, very, very bloody good in that fight. Franklin's a good inside fighter where, he's got quick hands, and Joshua got his work done and show some good defense. Yes, it wasn't the performance of a lifetime from Joshua against Franklin, but technically, it was he showed to be a good technical fighter in that fight. Against Robert Helenius, he looked to be a good technical fighter. Against Osso Wallin, he was a good technical, explosive fighter. Same against Ngannou, but he was wary of the threat coming at them. But when he went in there against Daniel Dubois, I feel like it seemed like he was that bit too overconfident, and that's why he was, getting dropped a load of times in that fight and just didn't learn from the mistakes. I see people saying, Joshua must change trainer. What's the point of him changing trainer again? Stick with Ben Davison and, do your thing. Fight smarter. That's what Joshua will do going into a rematch. And I think if he does that and he picks his shots better and is defensively sound, Joshua can win the fight. And Joshua's got those attributes in him. We've seen it. Joshua's got some good defensive attributes in him. So, if he can use them in a rematch against Daniel Dubois, it's winnable. I think overall, if you look at both of them from what we've seen, Joshua does have better all-round boxing IQ than what Daniel Dubois has. But we just didn't see it in that fight against Dubois in that first time. We just didn't see it for some reason. But again, no, Dubois didn't beat AJ based on boxing IQ. Dubois because people will say, Dubois beat AJ, so clearly he has better boxing IQ. That's not how it works. Joshua has better boxing IQ than what Dubois does overall. Dubois was just very good at capitalizing on the simple, basic mistakes that Joshua was making in the fight. That's how Daniel Dubois was able to win, as good as he was on that night. Dubois was good and he was explosive. And Joshua now knows, going into a rematch, the power that he really does need to focus about and worry about. And, that's going to be a key course, that's going to be, a key game plan to shut down that power of Daniel Dubois. And that's what he's got to do. And he needs to pick his shots and, pick his explosive moments well, set up his shots behind the jab. Because from what we noticed when he fought Dubois, AJ wasn't setting up his shots behind the jab. And, the thing is, though, we've seen Anthony Joshua do all this before. It's not like I'm saying, oh, Joshua needs to do this because, he's never done it before. No, we've seen Joshua do this stuff before. We've seen him set up his shots well. We've seen him dictate the pace behind his jab and eventually be unpredictable and get his work going. It just didn't happen against Dubois that time. And that's the unfortunate thing. And a lot of that was on Anthony Joshua having a real strange performance against Daniel Dubois. That was the thing. It was just so off, in my opinion. And it just wasn't normal at all. And overall, that was probably AJ's worst career performance because, people might say the Ruiz first fight was, but I think this one was it. It was just, he just came out and not taking any responsibility of his work. And I feel like that's going to be really different in a rematch with Daniel Dubois. I'm not saying Joshua is definitely going to win it, but a rematch where, he's fighting how he did against like Otto Wallin, something like that, being able to dictate the pace behind the jab. And yes, people will say Dubois shut that down, but I don't know, though. I don't know if Dubois did shut the jab down of Anthony Joshua going into it because Joshua just wasn't on it from the off. And Joshua just didn't even look like he wanted to throw the jab in that fight and get his shot set up. And that's the thing. So I wouldn't say Daniel Dubois went in there and completely shut Joshua's whole game down. I don't think that's what happened. I think Daniel Dubois has got a tough test in a rematch. If it does happen, I really do think Dubois has a tough test on his hands. And, you still would say Dubois is probably the favorite going into it, but I think Anthony Joshua can definitely win the rematch if he's on his game, 100%. If he fights like the real Anthony Joshua that we've seen, and, not too long ago, like, 9 months ago, if he fights like that, he can definitely win this fight. 100%. He needs to just be smart about it. And we've seen him do it before. There's no reason why he can't do it again. And, because from what I was noticing, his fights against Franklin, that one especially, his defense was the best we've seen it, to be fair, in my opinion. It really was. So, yeah, it's I just feel like he needs to be smart, and Joshua does need to go for a knockout here, and he does know, I think, especially he can hurt Dubois if he's smart about picking his moments well. Because what Joshua did before he got knocked out is, he decided to roll the dice. He did pick his moment well at the start of the round, but then he just decided to start spamming the right hand. Then, of course, he got knocked out because he was just full on going for it. But this time, if he stays smart, stays on it, stays focused, he's aware of the power of Dubois, he can win the fight, definitely. Anyway, thanks for watching this video of King Ons. I'll speak to you on the next one.